Oh, okay. Next. Oh.
You can go to the un petit bout de papier.
Oui, je vais chercher un bout de papier.
They have all the presentations.
Yeah, but the point is that she gave, no? The PPT to the technician.
Yeah.
Because I sent her.
Yeah,
So-
she gave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you need?
I don't know. I think I'll.
C'est 20 minutes.
9 heures, oui, c'est 20 minutes pour chacun, donc on va commencer en retard. On a déjà 10 minutes de retard.
On essaie de rattraper. Ça va être difficile.
Oui, c'est. It will be.
I know. How long is your presentation?
At first it was just a quarter, but as we are late, I'm going to be shorter. Yes. I just say hello, thank you for coming, bye. No, yes, I will try to be the shortest possible.
Okay. And then we'll start.
Yes, it's we have to begin at 9.
Après, je pense 15 minutes.
15 minutes for each.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, 10 minutes après, je crois que je mets un. Faut dire que c'est 5 minutes, non? Qu'est-ce que tu penses? Oui, parce que sinon, c'est.
Oui, oui, oui.
La personne a du temps pour se réorganiser.
Io faccio sia dietro anche perché da loro perché per il tuo noi ci possiamo muovere da qui, quindi ogni tanto vediamo a parlare così che ci muovono, cioè il giorno sì, mi hanno chiesto di essere una presenza attiva, quindi
Ben, j'attends,
Qu'est-ce qu'ils attendent? Je crois qu'il... Non, oui. Maintenant, ça dépend. On demande ça.
Okay, just I do it shorter and. Okay.
Good morning. I should say bonjour because the session today is presided by a French-speaking person, Father Pedro Rubens, and the introduction word today will be from a French person, Dr. François Mabille, who is the Secretary General of International Federation of Catholic Universities. And today's session that we're starting right now will be at the role and social responsibility of universities as regards migrants and refugees. So this is basically the issue that we're picking up from the UNHCR representative that was with us last night and urged us to have that social responsibility and to look at it closely. That's why we're discussing it today. This is a really important issue, and I'm really pleased to welcome you at the first full day of that international conference. Professor Mabille.
Thank you, Paulina. Je vais donc m'exprimer en français. Mon propos introductif voudrait resituer l'initiative de la Fédération internationale des universités catholiques et expliquer également rapidement la structuration de nos journées d'études qui précèdent donc la rencontre avec le pape François samedi matin. Notre mobilisation a pour point de départ une interrogation renouvelée sur la responsabilité de nos universités. Cette interrogation est directement liée aux différents défis qui concernent nos universités et parmi ces défis, bien évidemment, l'évolution des relations internationales. Cette évolution d'un monde globalisé où le rôle des États est à la fois relativisé et parfois amoindri, où la question des frontières se pose, comme vous le savez, de manière accrue et où rarement...
Just a second. We have a technical problem. I think you don't hear the translators, right? Let us fix that in a couple of minutes because this is important to understand what we're saying. So maybe let's start again in 2 minutes, if you don't mind. We would like to all hear the lecture. start. Should we start? Okay. All right. We can start again. Starting all over again.
Bien. J'espère que tout le monde peut m'entendre maintenant. Oui, c'est bon vous? Bon, très bien. Donc je vous disais à l'instant que je souhaitais introduire nos journées par une brève réflexion sur la responsabilité sociale ou sociétale de nos universités. En vous disant que le point de départ de notre mobilisation portait bien évidemment sur l'évolution des relations internationales qui concernent directement nos universités. Évolution des relations internationales, à savoir que le rôle des États est à la fois relativisé et amoindri, que la question des frontières, comme vous le savez, se pose de nouveau de manière accrue, on le voit bien en Europe, et où pour autant la prise en compte de l'humain, tout simplement, n'a jamais semblé aussi délaissée. C'est bien sûr le problème des migrants et des réfugiés qui nous préoccupe tous ensemble. Le point central de cette évolution qui concerne nos universités réside finalement dans le questionnement éthique auquel ces évolutions nous poussent. La question, qui est une question à la fois centrale et simple, est la suivante. De quoi et de qui nos universités sont-elles aujourd'hui responsables? Quelle est la portée de nos enseignements? À quel public s'adressent nos recherches au-delà des cénacles universitaires? Sommes-nous seulement responsables des étudiants qui nous sont confiés, j'allais presque dire des étudiants normaux? Est-ce que nous sommes responsables d'eux uniquement en termes de formation intellectuelle et de préparation professionnelle, ou est-ce qu'on doit concevoir une responsabilité élargie, celle qui porte sur le rôle et la mission de l'université dans son environnement immédiat et local, l'écosystème sociopolitique dont elle relève, mais aussi dans un environnement plus international, en lien avec les défis posés par un monde globalisé. Il y a également une question de cohérence qui se pose. Est-ce qu'on peut simplement enseigner dans nos salles de cours le droit international, l'éthique? Est-ce que l'on peut proposer des masters de coopération internationale, par exemple, comme il en existe dans de très nombreuses universités, sans s'interroger sur ceux qui, à quelques centaines de mètres, quelques kilomètres, parfois dans les grandes villes, à quelques stations de bus ou de métro, sont finalement les victimes des systèmes internationaux et également les sujets de nos enseignements, alors même qu'ils sont exclus de nos systèmes universitaires par la seule faute d'être victimes de conflits, de pauvreté ou, demain encore, de catastrophes écologiques. La responsabilité sociétale de nos universités se pose à cet instant précis quand il s'agit de se demander individuellement et collectivement, enseignants, étudiants, communautés éducatives, si notre enceinte universitaire délimite un lieu de production de savoir qui, en contradiction avec son étymologie, exclut, même involontairement, ou au contraire, souhaite demeurer ouvert au plus grand nombre. C'est donc à partir du travail réalisé par les universités publiques et privées, et notamment parmi celles-ci par nos universités membres, qu'il nous a semblé nécessaire à la Fédération internationale des universités catholiques d'intégrer notre réflexion et d'interroger nos pratiques dans le rapport aux migrants et réfugiés, dans ce que l'on appelle la responsabilité sociale des universités. Cette responsabilité qui tend à se développer au niveau national est également travaillée au niveau international par des organisations comme l'UNESCO ou l'OCDE, l'UNESCO qui sera d'ailleurs représenté durant ce colloque. Dans son rapport de 2007 sur l'engagement local, l'OCDE affirmait, je cite, « D'un point de vue plus large, l'engagement régional est un signe visible de la dimension de service, notamment de service public, inhérente à l'enseignement supérieur, grâce auquel les établissements sont en mesure d'illustrer leur contribution à la société civile. Ces initiatives de collaboration permettent en effet aux établissements d'enseignement supérieur d'apporter une preuve concrète de la valeur ajoutée associée aux investissements publics dans l'enseignement supérieur et la recherche. Ce service, cette contribution à la société civile, oblige à s'interroger sur les destinataires de ce type d'engagement. Certes, l'université contribue à l'insertion citoyenne, professionnelle et sociale de ses étudiants dans la société, mais elle doit aussi les ouvrir à la conscience des interdépendances mondiales et aux responsabilités futures qui en découlent, leur faire découvrir, au-delà des convictions religieuses et philosophiques de chacun, leur commune humanité, et les préparer à relever les défis du siècle en découvrant ce qui les unit aux autres et finalement transcende ce qui les en sépare. Les recommandations, et notamment les recommandations européennes à l'égard de la responsabilité sociétale des universités, sont déclinées dans les différents champs de l'action publique, dans la recherche, la formation et le développement de la citoyenneté étudiante. Sur ce dernier point, les réflexions à mener avec les étudiants et avec leurs associations est importante puisque ces associations se voient reconnaître le but de soutenir des projets qui associent vie étudiante et engagement pour assurer la cohésion territoriale, ce qui les amène à se tourner vers autrui. La responsabilité signifie assumer son pouvoir, être en mesure de justifier, légitimer, répondre de ses actes. Elle intègre à la fois l'engagement et l'obligation, et ceci est particulièrement vrai pour les universités catholiques, dont la responsabilité devient la contrepartie de la liberté comme principe d'action. Et cela est vrai, bien sûr, pour les universités publiques, dès lors que l'on veut bien considérer, par exemple, les attendus de la Déclaration de Lisbonne, et ce qui est dit de l'autonomie des universités comme élément constitutif de l'institution. C'est donc fort de l'ensemble de ces convictions que, tout en restant dans le champ académique, mais avec une approche élargie, l'ensemble des promoteurs de ces journées d'études ont souhaité rassembler différents acteurs, parties prenantes de systèmes locaux d'action, que nous souhaitons désormais internationaliser et rendre pérennes, globaliser, si je puis dire, afin de partager les expériences menées, les confronter aux analyses relevant de perspectives d'action différentes et de responsabilités variées. Et donc nous allons commencer dès ce matin par partager ces expériences à partir de points de vue différemment situés. Les deux premiers orateurs parleront à partir du Portugal et de l'Australie. Donc vous voyez deux pays très éloignés, mais c'est l'objet même de ces journées que de pouvoir confronter des situations qui, a priori éloignées, présentent sans doute un certain nombre de similitudes. Et donc, je vous souhaite une très bonne matinée d'études et je passe la parole au président Pedro Rubens. Merci.
Father Pedro will preside this session, but let me introduce the first speakers first. So the first speaker on sharing of general experiences, motivations, and actions will be Dr. Mariana Barbosa from Universidade Católica Portuguesa. And she's a researcher in a group of international perspectives on governmental aggression and peace. So basically, peace psychology is what she's researching, and she's going to be talking about this very interesting subject today and her experiences. Dr. Barbosa.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the opportunity of being here, sharing my experience. So in Portugal, and you already had the opportunity to listen about what we are doing in the Portuguese Catholic University, because Dr. Isabel Capella Gil was here yesterday. So we are welcoming some refugees in Portugal, but we are giving the first steps because we didn't have a lot of experience in this. But in my case, I'm working in the Catholic University in Porto, and so I'm very involved in this response called the Refugee Support Platform. That is a network of civil society organizations that are trying to provide hosts. Each institution provides hosting to one family. So it's a very large network that involves the participation of universities, but also of schools, of church institutions, NGOs. So we try as civil society to build up this network to provide, to enlarge our capacity of response, because we didn't have this professional response in Portugal. And so with this response, we were able to provide more than half of the refugees that are in Portugal are under this network. So I think it was really helpful in our need to contribute to this effort. So I'm from peace psychology. I'm an academic and I teach about this kind of subjects. We are trying to set up the psychological support for the persons that are there within our university, because we have this clinic of psychological intervention. So we are trying to organize also a specific psychological response to the people that are hosted in Portugal. We are also doing training for the host institutions, because as I told you, it's civil society responses, so lots of the people that are involved are not professionals, so we try to organize some training for these people with some components e-learning. Am I speaking too fast? No. Sorry. So we are trying also to help with training in different in psychological aspects of related with trauma of the refugee population, but also religious. We have the contribution of the humans also in this training, intercultural aspects, and so we try to provide training for the people that are trying to help in the integration of the refugees, but are not experts on this. We are also doing the evaluation and monitoring of this refugee support platform, because it was kind of a new experience in Portugal. So we are trying also to, as a research center, to evaluate it. And then we are also doing some research on trauma and resilience in refugee camps, namely here in Lesbos. And what I'm sharing, the minutes that I have, and because we don't have much time, then I'm of course available to be in more person contact with anyone interested. I will share this specific experience that I have first as a volunteer, then as a coordinator of a volunteer program in Greece. And I would like to focus on this because, as I told you, I am an academic, and sometimes one of the problems that we are all together here, also because of this, is that sometimes the academia and then the practice are very not connected. And so, as our rector also told you, at first, back in 2015, when all this situation was very, very raising, we felt that we wanted to do something, and in Portugal there was this very solidarity movement, but we had no people to. I'm looking at someone from Germany, where the refugees were arriving, and in Portugal we wanted to help, but people, because the bureaucratic things weren't arriving. And so what I felt as a person that is involved in this is that I couldn't be just waiting for me to be able to help. So I asked my dean for permission to go as a volunteer to Lesbos. And so that's what I did. At first I was there providing psychosocial support and with no connection to any specific NGO in a time where boats are arriving and the response were not very organized. And then this refugee support platform from Portugal, we decided, they invited me to try to set up a frontline volunteer program there. So I was there trying to do this. And I will show you some pictures about this experience that allow us. Right now we have this volunteer program there, and some of our former students, for example, they are volunteers with us in these refugee camps, and we are working there with Caritas and with Jesuit Refugee Service, and with this and with us being there and providing information about the relocation scheme and about our program in Portugal, and because we were there, so we were kind of being able to serve as mediators of the asylum service and of the refugee population there. So we were able to also help to bring some people with whom we were working there in our volunteer program. And so I was very lucky to be there with some people in the refugee camps and then help them to come to Portugal, and now continuing to helping this person. So I will show you some pictures. But for example, I was there I met this lady there that she was pregnant, and now I have the opportunity of continuing to helping them in Portugal, and now she had twins, and so it's a very different experience to be able to be with them in the context where they were in the camps, and then helping them to come to Portugal, and now providing help, and of course that because we had these both contexts of being in the camps and also in Portugal, we try also to use this information to do like better matches when they come to Portugal. So for example, if we know this lady, for example, she is a young lady and she wants to study, to continue her studies in university. So because we already knew this information, we tried that she would be put in a city next to university, so that she could have the opportunity to continue her studies. So I don't know how much time do I have, but I'll try to show you some pictures.
8 more minutes.
8 or 7? Okay, I'll try to, in 7 minutes, to show you. So this is, I'm the one in the left, your left. And we put this Portugal because one of our intentions in going there was that people would know that Portugal exists. So, sometimes I would say Portugal and they would say, well, they say, but then I would say Cristiano Ronaldo, and then of course everybody knows Portugal. But we want for them to be connected with us and to understand that in Portugal there are people we are not like a rich country, but we have rich people concerning the willingness to help them. But sometimes they didn't have this option because they don't know that Portugal exists and there's people there willing to help. I don't have time to. This is it's a picture from a Syrian artist. And he does this, so he uses paintings such as this one from Clint, The Kiss, and then he matches it with ruins from the war zones. And for me, it's very strong. It's Taman Azan, and for me, it's a metaphor for Lesbos, because Lesbos is the most beautiful place. It's an idyllical place. And then when you go there with the crisis, you have just these vests and these things that you can really see what's happening. So it's this contrast of such a beautiful place with such an ugly side of humankind. So this is it's pictures that you also see. Now you don't see as much, but this is still happening. It's not a very mediatic thing right now. It doesn't mean it's not still happening. So examples of the vests, you can see that kids arrive with these just for playing materials, for example. So this explains how many people sometimes drown, and explains how desperate these people are, because they know that this is just for play. This won't protect their kids from surviving. So, but they are very desperate, so they risk their lives anyway. Sometimes people say that I use a lot these pictures for sensibilization, because sometimes they say, well, if they are refugees, how come they don't bring their passports, their documents? And you can see here, this little kid, the documents. This is images I would prefer not to think that in Europe, the Europe of the solidarity values, we have this kind of camps, but this is the reality of the camps where people stay. Michael, now this is for you. So I told Michael that sometimes, for example, and it happened with me, I just decided to go to Greece. In fact, I was thinking about these kind of things, but it was when the problem knocked at the Europe door that I decided to go. And you can see there, because we were collecting also some fundings to help the refugees there. And the lady that you see in the orange vest actually is a girl from Australia. So she's 21 years old that decided, she just saw what was happening in Europe, and so she decided to volunteer at camp. So I think it's a really strong example that we should look at this as human beings needing help from other human beings. So I will... This, for me, it's... I'm sorry, I forgot to change from Portuguese, but for me, it's a contrast about what was, at least in Greece, before the deal with the Turkey, that there was a phase, and I was there in both phases, where the borders were open, and so I could see, and I'm a psychologist, so I could see people were very afraid and they were very traumatized, but at least there was like hope in their eyes, because they were arrived and they were saying, Europe is welcoming us, and we will go to Germany and everything will be okay, and then I'll be able to bring my family. And so there was like hope in their eyes. And then the deal with Turkey was implemented, the borders were closed. And for me, this picture here, it's really how people are right now, because most of the people, they are just stuck. And the most serious issues for me is that they have no idea of what will happen. 2 minutes. They have no idea of what will happen. And so, psychologically speaking, it's really, really bad. And I could really experience, because I was there before and after, how this has an impact in what people then in the reactions of the people. So at first, you'll have persons that were, despite their traumas, very proactive and very, in a positive attitude. And now sometimes you hear in the news riots in the camps and people committing a lot of suicidal attempts and a lot of some violence, some alcohol and drug problems. And it's ways of coping with, imagine that you were trying to escape from war, you were risking your life with all this journey, and then you arrive to a safe place, and then you are in a camp for more than 1 year, and you try to speak with the professionals, and no one is able to tell you what will be your situation. And so you have kids. Yesterday, someone was telling that we know that if kids stay out of school for a long time, this will be very, very damaged, and this is what is happening. So in our volunteer program, we were trying to do our best to compensate while they are waiting. We are trying to provide psychosocial support. So you have here the space where we are working very fast. So this is our container, and we try to have activities for the kids. We try to have a psychosocial support. We have group of women, group of men. And maybe I will finish. We do some entertainment, more ludic things. For example, we have, this is our cinema sessions, for example. We find out that they prefer to see Frozen every time. We try other movies, but they prefer to just watch Frozen and Frozen and Frozen again. But just to give you, I will finish maybe with an example, and then I will have more to share, but I can't. For example, we put little chairs, and we decided to take these chairs because they were so excited, the kids, about having chairs because they don't have for a long time, and so we have to remove the chairs, for example, for the cinema. And for example, we have this non-formal education. We have the mastermind classes where we try to provide like cognitive stimulation, etc. And then we have the more artistic ones, creative minds. And we were thinking that the kids would like better the entertainment sessions, balloons, movies, group dynamics, and in the others is with the books, and we correct things. And the kids every time would prefer, they will bring with. They didn't want to play. They want the books, and they want for us to correct the things, and they want to show their parents. So this really shows how. When we don't have anything, then when we don't have the school, we give importance, and how meaningful this was, because they are really lack and they have thirst, you know, they are very motivated about it. So just to finish, and it just, so here we have other things, but activities, just to finish, these girls, they are speaking Portuguese and English. They are saying, good morning, good afternoon.
How do you say keep I love you?
No, they're trying to say I love you. I love you. Amut, I love you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariana. I think on a human level, it made me realize, and many of you probably in this room, that all kids all over the world are the same, because my daughter would make great friends of the girls watching Frozen, for sure. So this was an amazing example of a human level help to provide education for kids, especially at the refugee camps. And our second speaker is Dr. Michael Ondaatje, who is a national head of the School of Arts and associate professor of history at the Australian Catholic University. And he researches on African American conservatives. And in 2010, Michael's first book, Black Conservative Intellectuals in Modern America, was a top 20 bestseller in US history. The number of his media appearances is countless, so I won't introduce him more. Dr. Michael Ondaatje.
Well, thank you for that introduction and for the invitation to be here. And thank you, Dr. Barbosa, for that very fine presentation. I wasn't aware of the excellent work that you and your university have been doing in this arena. It's wonderful to hear about it, and I'm looking forward to exploring ways that our universities might work together to assist refugees in the future. My university, of course, is Australian Catholic University, and through our Faculty of Education and Arts, we offer the Thai-Burma education program to refugees on the Thai-Burma border in Asia. I'll say more about the program in a moment, what it is and why we offer it, and I'll also make some observations about the political context we're working in and ultimately the students we're serving, although not necessarily in that order. But I'd first like to show you a video that captures in 2 very short minutes what the Thai-Burma program is really all about. And we might show that video now.
Given the situation has got so much worse in the last week, do you believe this is ethnic cleansing? Well, I would answer your question with another question. When 1/3 of the Rohingya population had to flee the country, can you find a better word to describe it?
Okay, I'm going to come back to those words, impact through empathy, shortly, but let me make two brief observations now. The first observation is that Australian Catholic University is the only university in Australia that offers higher education opportunities to refugees in crisis situations anywhere in the world. The second observation is that Australian Catholic University is the only university in the world that offers higher education opportunities to refugees in crisis situations in the East Asia region. Very few people in Australia know this. Very few people beyond Australia know this. Before I talk about the program itself, let me tell you a bit, and I know that many of you will know about all these things I'm about to say, but let me tell you a little bit about the historical and political context that has made the program necessary. Myanmar, obviously formerly known as Burma, is located approximately 6,000 kilometres northwest of Australia. It has a population of around 52 million and is made up of 135 to 140 ethnic groups. Most of our students are from the Karen ethnic minority, who constitute around about 4% of the total Burmese population, and who, along with other minorities, have waged a campaign of resistance against the ruling dictatorship since 1962. As many of you would know, the civil war in Burma has the dubious distinction of being the longest running civil war in the world. The persecution of ethnic minorities there has been described by human rights researchers as a form of slow genocide. We know this. The Burmese government has been accused of multiple human rights violations, including forced labour, confiscation of land and forced relocation, the burning of crops and villages, including houses and religious institutions and schools, and sexual and physical violence against men, women and children. Of course, in 2011, a fragile democracy of sorts was formed in Burma, but the transition from military regime to military-controlled democracy has made little difference in the lives of ethnic minorities. Everyone is aware of the current plight of the Rohingya. This is particularly dreadful, but other groups, such as the Karen, also continue to be persecuted. So the political context in which we offer the Thai Burma program is violent and it's often volatile. At Australian Catholic University, we therefore have to work very carefully to strike a balance between promoting our program on the one hand and avoiding inflaming political tensions on the other. Ultimately, we're guided by our mission and identity, our Catholic identity, which means that we get in on the front line even when it's hard to do so. So let's think about this a bit more. Today, just over the border from Myanmar, in the northeast of Thailand, 10 refugee camps house just over 100,000 people. Some of the refugees have been in the camps for 30 or more years. And some of our diploma students, now in their 20s, were actually born in these camps. Thailand, like a lot of countries in Southeast Asia, does not have national asylum systems and generally considers asylum seekers and refugees to be illegal migrants. Some primary and secondary school education is available to Burmese migrants and refugee children, provided by the UNHCR and by charities, but higher education was non-existent in this population until Australian Catholic University identified this hole in the system and moved to fill it. So since 2009, so just in the last 8.5 years, 197 refugee students on the Thai-Burma border have graduated with an Australian Catholic University Diploma of Liberal Studies. Most of these students have gone on to further study at international universities or have gained employment with organisations that are dedicated to helping poor and vulnerable people. Remember those faces at the end of the video. They are our real students. There was Gum San Seng, who graduated from the diploma in 2014 and went on to work for the UNHCR in Myanmar as a protection associate, helping the UN to protect at-risk communities and monitoring protection standards back in her home country. Zui Miat Chan, who graduated only this year and has just been awarded a full 5-year scholarship and entry into the honours program at the Education University in Hong Kong. And Zhui Xin Tin, our graduate from Ranong in 2015, who now works for the International Organisation for Migration Mission in Thailand, supporting Burmese migrants and refugees. These students, and many others from the program, I would say, have been inspired and empowered through access to education to serve others and to make a difference. When you hear these students talk about the program, and I have, it is clear that for them, the diploma is more than just a pathway to a good job or future study. It means transformation and changing the course of history for them, for their families, and for their communities. By offering them this opportunity, we are effectively saying to them, we see you, we hear you, you are important, you matter. And this is something that many of them have never experienced in their lives. Now, on the face of it, the outcomes of this program seem quite remarkable, but they're actually not that surprising. Hillary Clinton put it best, I think, when she said some years ago, talent is universal, opportunity is not. Talent is universal, opportunity is not. That is what we have sought to provide for these young people, opportunity. And we have sought to make this opportunity directly relevant to them and their communities by designing the Diploma of Liberal Studies with a heavy international development focus. So our Thai-Burma students study the following subjects: English communication skills, introduction to development, introduction to management, global history, introduction to international relations, introduction to international human rights law and practice, issues in global health, and education for sustainability. This last subject delivered by our partner, York University from Canada. These are the same units taught at ACU, Australian Catholic University in Australia, and in many cases, our students in Thailand study these units at the same time as our Australian students, via the university's online platform. In other words, we offer important opportunities for collaborative learning, and we offer important opportunities for cross-cultural exchange. I should also probably say that we have an almost 100% retention rate for students in the Thai-Burma program, which is a lot higher than our retention rate for Australian students. We offer the diploma in 2 locations, at Mae Sot in the north of Thailand and Ranong in the south, and there are usually 45 to 50 students in each cohort. Hundreds of students from the Thai-Burma border region apply for entry into the diploma in each intake year, and they sit Australian Catholic University's International Student English entrance exams in villages and refugee camps in Thailand. The students who gain entry then either live in the community with their families or they live in dormitories near one of our learning centres in Mae Sot or Ranong. They study their 8 subjects over an 18-month period with the support of ACU lecturers who travel to Thailand to teach them and on-site tutors who we employ in Thailand. We also have a number of partnerships in place that enable us to deliver the diploma successfully, and we are a founding member of the Connected Learning Consortium, which is dedicated to the provision of higher education in contexts of crisis, conflict and displacement around the world. At present, we're engaging with the consortium about the possibility of our Thai-Burma students taking a Princeton University Global History unit that has been adapted for refugee learners in refugee camps internationally. I'm excited by this possibility and by other possibilities that might emerge from this important conference. I've just got a couple more points to make. I've only got a couple more minutes to speak. I want to make sure that I don't paint a perfect picture here and that I don't deny there are challenges, because the truth is the Thai-Burma program does face some challenges. The difficulty of delivering education to students overseas in areas with old and run-down infrastructure, interruptions to student study from government crackdowns and natural disasters, and of course, all of this is expensive work to fund, and despite its incredible importance, it has been difficult to attract donor funding to keep the program going. But Australian Catholic University continues to fund the Thai-Burma program because we believe in it. At the most basic level, the work we are doing on the Thai-Burma border reflects the kind of university we are and the kind of university we want to continue to be. At the heart of our mission and at the heart of our identity is a commitment to those words, impact through empathy. Indeed, this commitment defines us as a university community. It's a statement of what it is to be a university community centred on the dignity of the human person. It's the promise that Australian Catholic University has made to work for the common good, to transform communities in need, both in Australia and around the world. We stand up for people in need and for causes that matter, and we believe in education with a bigger purpose. This is what the Thai-Burma program means to us. Let me end by recounting a recent exchange that I had with a member of the Australian public. Last month, I was talking about the Thai-Burma program at a forum in Sydney, Australia, and a member of the audience raised his hand at the end of my presentation and stated very bluntly that, and I quote here, "Surely the program is too costly, and surely it's unsustainable financially." In my reply to him, I said that it all depends on how we measure investment. If it's only an issue of dollars and cents, then of course, all we would focus on is how much the program costs us. But I challenged him to think about the people we are serving here, to imagine walking in their shoes, to see the world through their eyes, the trauma, the displacement, the uncertainty. The man was about 55 years old, and I asked him to imagine being the parent of one of these students and what it would mean to him to see his son or daughter walk across the stage at an Australian Catholic University graduation ceremony and look out on the future with optimism and hope. The Thai-Burma program is about more than dollars and cents. It's an investment in people, and it's one of the best investments that my university, Australian Catholic University, has ever made. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ondaatje, first for your excellent presentation and for this excellent video that you presented at the beginning. Impact through empathy, it's indeed what you're doing at the Australian Catholic University. And in fact, Pope Francis lately told immigrants, you ended your presentation with saying exactly the same thing. Pope Francis told the immigrants and the refugees, I want to carry your eyes and mine, your head, your hearts and mine, just recently in Bologna. And as said yesterday, as we were discussing today, no university can work alone without non-governmental organizations in places like refugee camps, in places like you mentioned where the Rohingya refugee crisis is ongoing. So now it's the time for the reaction and critical responses by NGOs. How can we take these general commitments further? And it is my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Willi Weisflock from Kiron, Germany, and later Father David Holdcroft from the Jesuit Refugee Service. First, Willi Weisflock is managing the curriculum development at Kiron, a social startup whose mission is to eliminate barriers for refugees to access higher education by charging no tuition fee and allowing enrollment based on performance. And he will share his experiences now.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Can you hear me well, or do I need to? Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say how grateful I am. Is this better? Okay. First of all, I have to say how grateful I am to be here among such wonderful initiatives as yours. And I was asked to give a short introduction on what we do as an initiative, to tell you something about what we've learned, give you recommendations for universities, and also critically reflect on what has been said before, and all this in 15 minutes. Since I really applaud your initiatives, I will not focus on critical comments regarding your initiatives, but introduce you to what we are doing and what we have learned, what can be useful for universities as well. I think, yeah, when I was invited here, I was wondering which role do we play here. Sometimes we're in the context of NGOs, we play the role of the academic higher education, and sometimes if we're in the business world, we're the young social startup. And I think here we might play the role of bringing in a digital perspective. And I think I'm already doing quite well by using slides. First of all, we have heard a lot of numbers yesterday, so I will just point towards one more number that we haven't heard yesterday. Every day, 34,000 people are forced to flee their homes as a consequence of conflict and persecution. Every day, 34,000 persons. And something we have already heard yesterday, but that I would love to repeat, is that the general access to higher education in the general population is more than 30 times higher than among refugees. Only 1% of refugees has access to higher education. And moving from numbers to individuals, to persons, I would like to quote Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, who emphasizes that refugees, just like all other individuals, have skills, ideas, hopes and dreams. They are also tough, resilient and creative, with the energy and drive to shape their own destinies, given the chance. Unfortunately, they are often not given the chance, and refugees often face one or several of these 4 barriers that have been identified by the UNHCR. First of all, costs, of course. A major issue are tuition fees, but even in countries like Germany, where tuition fees are low, the living costs, sometimes the prospective students have to take care of families. There are legal barriers. In Germany, for example, the asylum process takes a lot of time. They are forced to wait until they're able to access higher education. College capacity is an issue, and of course language. Most refugees do not initially speak the language of their host country if they're in Germany, for example, or Greece or Spain. We are addressing these barriers so refugees can fulfill their potentials and pursue their dreams. Like Sajida. Sajida came from Syria to Germany 2 years ago. And even long before we were able to successfully bring the first refugees into university, we were able to change their perspective and also how others viewed themselves. We asked Sajida what she wants to become, and she said she wants to become an engineer, and she also said she will become an engineer, and she was able to redefine herself and giving away the label of being a refugee and defining herself as being a student. And just like Sajida, there are so many others out there who are unable to access higher education. And we have a vision where everyone has equal chances to access higher education, and we want to pursue this vision by enabling access to higher education and successful learning for refugees through digital solutions. And the digital solutions look like this. The core of the program is built around self-paced online courses, and these are complemented by live online tutorials. And in addition, students can participate in on and offline student services. A little bit more in detail, it looks like this. The students are, they can register on our website for the program. Upon registration, there's a short application and onboarding process, motivation and language test, and after a few hours, the persons can get full access to the platform. On the platform, they can choose to either take preparatory modules which prepare them with academic skills. They can take language courses, or they can immediately or after that start studying subject-specific courses in one of the study tracks we offer. And we offer 5 study tracks for the students, and in these study tracks, we have coherent and modularized curricula out of massive open online courses, MOOCs. And these are, as I mentioned already, complemented by live online courses and additional online and offline student services. And the students have as much time as they need, and we recommend them to finish courses equivalent to 1 or 2 semesters of university, but of course they can choose to apply at university anytime they want. When they are ready to apply at university, when they have the documents in place, when they have reached the language level, and when they have the time, we support them in applying at university, and as soon as they are accepted at university, we support them in getting the courses recognized that they studied with us. And we work together with universities to ensure the recognition of these courses through learning agreements such as European universities are used to in Erasmus agreements. And most importantly, our students. We currently have almost 3,000 students on the platform. About 50% of them are located in Germany, Our other main focus countries of operations are France and Jordan, and almost half of the students come from Syria. And here you can also see the distribution among the different study tracks that we're offering. This is what it looks like from a student perspective. You can use your desktop computer, your laptop, or also your smartphone to navigate through the platform. You can see the module physics there. Students can track their own progress. There's a forum which they can use to interact with other students, the services, and then as soon as they choose the course they want to enroll in, they are redirected to the partner platform, which offers the MOOC, the Massive Open Online Courses. And many of these courses are from renowned universities like Harvard, Stanford, or MIT. And in addition to this online platform, we're offering the student services. So there's a mentoring program where students are paired with a professional from the host society and where they work on their academic and career goals and who support them in integrating into the academic system and the job market. There's a buddy program where they're paired with the local university students to learn more about university life in the host society and to get some support and also on administrative issues. There's a psychosocial counseling offer, which is also accessible online in I think more than 20 languages. So students are usually paired with a counselor in their native language. As soon as students want to apply to university, they receive transfer guidance. There are some offline facilities with computers and internet access. There's the forum I mentioned. There's the help desk, which quickly, usually in less than 20 hours, replies to the questions of the students. And students have the opportunity to form their own study groups in the forum, and study group organizers are trained in a webinar to become study group organizers. And that's what we're doing. And now I was asked to share with you what universities can learn from us. And of course, there's much that we have learned in the past year, so I tried to focus on the most important aspects that universities can learn from us. First of all, we had one speaker mention this yesterday already. Throughout the media, the refugee situation is often termed as a crisis. And this crisis terminology and this crisis perspective has led to a huge reaction in the beginning, a huge reaction of empathy, commitment, responsibility, but it has also very rapidly changed, and the commitment has dropped very rapidly. What we have made really good experience with is also considering what the other actors who are maybe not as committed to the social cause as we are, always keep in mind what might be their self-interest, what could be an opportunity for them in making higher education accessible for refugees. So, and in the context of universities, I think two major opportunities that we see are that digitalization or digitization is something that can help make higher education accessible for refugees, but it's also something that can help universities to improve their profile and to become more modern on that front. Also, many problems that refugees are facing when accessing higher education are not unique to refugees, but also general to all international students. And if we use this pressure that is coming now by making higher education accessible for refugees, we can build processes and we can learn and use this experience to increase mobility among all students, not only refugees. a major aspect that we highly underestimated in the beginning is that refugees need information and guidance, and they need additional information and guidance to the one that's available at most universities. For example, they have to adapt to a new educational system, they have to adapt to the new language, and they have many other issues at the side. It's not like it's their only problem to access higher education. And what we realized is that the digitization and automation of information and guidance can be extremely helpful, not as a cost savings measure, but to save resources, to have more time and more resources for personal interventions, because these personal interventions are crucial, they are key when in terms of both digital learning as well as refugee education. Talking about digital learning offers tremendous opportunities for refugees. There's a vast amount of courses, also high quality courses available on the internet. But for most people, these asynchronous courses, these MOOCs, only work in combination with early personal interventions. So things like offline study events, online video chats with a tutor or with a mentor, or even phone calls are very, very effective in increasing retention among these courses. And also offline interventions can also be helpful, of course. But when talking about MOOCs, recognition, of course, is a topic. These courses are really interesting for refugee students only if their recognition is ensured. And refugees are often facing a multiple recognition problem because not only are they, in our case, looking to get their MOOCs recognized, but they often lack the documents. We saw the picture of the watered passport. Many documents don't have their high school diploma. Many refugee students had to interrupt their studies and don't have a degree, and some have a degree which is undocumented. And in the case of recognition, it's already, for domestic students, it's already very hard to understand and to know what to do to get qualifications recognized. And for refugee students who don't know the local academic system, it's even harder. So it's absolutely crucial to provide clear guidance and information. And we can only give clear guidance information if we have clear rules. And this is something that can only work well if universities collaborate in different consortiums, also in this network here, to establish clear rules and provide clear guidance and information. Yeah, something else is that some of these situations, undocumented qualifications, we don't have great measures in place yet. So as universities, I also recommend you to be open to innovative approaches, such as recognizing MOOCs that the students took with Chiron, or like the European Qualification Passport for Refugees from our friends at Nokut, who are also represented here today. Finally, a very important issue is, of course, language. Language courses are essential to be able to follow not only everyday conversations, but academic courses, to also learn the academic terms. But also guidance and information has to be available in several languages. And since we can never cover all potential languages that our refugee students will speak, what has been a very interesting insight for us is that it's already helpful to provide information in German or English, which is not the native language of refugees, but in easy language. So avoiding complex terms and just using very easy, straightforward language for those students who are not yet as good in English as German as they need to be to follow the academic studies. Finally, one insight thought that I would like to share with you. Is there another slide? Apparently not. We started a little more than 2 years ago with a small team of 10 volunteers who had just finished their studies or gained first job experience. And within a little more than 2 years, we have grown into an international organization which is represented in 3 countries with more than 50 employees, and recognized by German universities, supported by the German Ministry of Education, and most importantly, we have been able to bring students into university. Our first, thank you, our first cohort got into university this year. Our goal was 20 students and we reached 27. Now that we have established these processes, our goal is to, perfect. Our goal is to reach 125 next year and many more throughout the next years. And most importantly, our students. Our students have not only been able to enter university, but they have also been able to raise their voice, to become an active part of political discussions, and also to include their own voice into the discussion about refugees and make it a discussion with refugees. On these pictures you see a few of our transfer students, and the lady in pink, as some of you might recognize, is the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who asked our students Mu'taz, Wafa and Ayat for their opinions. On the picture on the top right you can see our transfer students Ayat and Ahmad, who were heard at the United Nations in talks about Syria. And on the top, on the bottom right, you can see the former German Minister of Labor and now leading the Social Democratic Party in the parliament, together with Alaa and Sajida, learning about their situation. And why am I telling you this? The most important aspect, the most important insight we had in the past years is that we always need to include the students, we always need to include their voice, not only in our small NGO world, but also in the large society and in the large discussions. And also, finally, if we 10 people who just graduated from university are able to make such a difference, then you as the maybe a little bit slower but much larger and much more institutions with a much larger reach and in a large network, you can achieve probably so much more. And yeah, let's do this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Vili. I think it's especially a challenge to the Gregorian University that has been here for centuries. So what can the Gregorian do if you can do such great things if you only graduated? And talking about the Jesuits, 2 organizations in the world, Jesuit Refugee Service and Jesuit Worldwide Learning, are the 2 widely recognized to help refugees and to help educate refugees. And our next speaker is Father David Holdcroft, who has recently completed a 6-year term as Jesuit Refugee Service Regional Director for Southern Africa. Based in Johannesburg, he was charged with developing, implementing, and maintaining projects with refugees in Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, and South Africa itself. For years, he was also working with homeless people in Australia. And in his new assignment, he's conducting a strategic review of Jesuit Refugee Service programming internationally in the higher education sector. And this is a real pleasure to give you the floor.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. I would just like you for a minute to imagine there are around about, probably in the region of 2 million refugees, registered refugees, and perhaps 6.5 million displaced people altogether, who are aged from the ages of 18 to 29, roughly 10% of the displaced population. And just imagine for a minute if every one of those young people, men and women, had a clear vision and a bit of a roadmap for their life. No matter whether they're in a camp, in an urban area, in a detention centre, that they have a vision for going forward with their life. And that at the same time, they have access to the resources, educational and other, to fulfill in at least large part that vision. Imagine how different the world would be to capitalise on that potential that at the moment we are missing out on. At the beginning of the session, Dr. Mabille asked the question, where do universities' responsibility for education, where does universities' responsibility for education stop? Where are the borders for this responsibility? He raised issues of accountability and authenticity in universities' courses, particularly in courses that encompass ethics, international relations, and politics. He was challenging us to walk the talk. I think if we are able to do this, then our universities, as well as NGOs, could contribute much more positively to the notoriously emotional and partisan public conversation and debates about migration and refugees internationally. I think there is a huge opportunity too to contribute constructively to dialogue between Christianity and Islam. Most of the refugees of the world are of the Islamic faith. Looks like somebody's not getting a translation at the moment. Can I go on? Yeah? Okay. So Hillary Clinton was quoted before, talent is universal, opportunity is not. We come from a focus, a place of privilege, where most of us live a life where we expect our human rights and experiences to be respected and to be fulfilled. Most refugees are in a very different place. So the heading of this section of the program asks the question, how can we take these general commitments further? JRS is not a university, it's an international NGO and faith-based organisation. We're a small to medium-sized organisation, but we are spread over 50 countries. Our goal is to address critical need and need no one else is addressing amongst refugee populations. In the last 7 years, JRS has partnered with 7 organisations in helping to deliver higher education to refugees. Our foundational and to this day main partner has been Jesuit Worldwide Learning. We have also at times developed our own courses for face-to-face delivery in a short course certificate kind of format. And we have learnt a few things. And if you join with me on this brief journey into the world of refugee education, you'll hear some of what we have learnt. Our post-secondary tertiary education needs to be contextual. 86% of refugees stay in the global south. They stay in the poorest countries of our earth. and they will not move. Last year was a very good year for resettlement to third countries. 0.24% of displaced people were resettled last year, and that was before the Trump effect. So the vast majority of refugees are going to remain in their present host countries, fighting numerous barriers to get decent employment and living conditions, and to get out of camps where they're in camps. We must partner with and work to build the capacity of institutions in those countries, institutions of higher learning, to both to give them capacity, but to remove a key barrier to refugees utilising these hard-won new skills. Our courses at the least need local accreditation or an articulation agreement. An ideal for me is a three-way partnership with an international university or organisation, a local university, and an on-the-ground partner. We have learnt that when someone does a course, they acquire a set of skills, both soft skills and hard skills. If they do not utilise these skills or have the opportunity to do so, then students will gradually, or ex-students will gradually lose confidence in them. A plan for employment or a pathway to further tertiary education utilising these skills is a key criterion for these kinds of courses and projects that we offer. Hence, for us as an NGO, our projects must do labour and commercial market assessments in the country where the refugee are before a project starts, so that we can include this data in our project thinking and structure the pathway this pathway for students. And I think this is a key role that we can add to the whole mix of working with universities in this area. Soft skills such as critical thinking, written and oral presentation, education in values, life skills are also critical, but for us must be taken in and studied in the context and developed in the context of the primary goal, which is a pathway to income generation in the country where they are. Refugees' areas of their nature are not generally well resourced. We always need to take into account the interests and long-term outlook of the countries that host these refugees. It is key that these countries become invested in refugee futures. The crisis in refugee education extends also to secondary schooling. For me, it would be a win-win if we can somehow train and use our tertiary resources to train future secondary teachers and ask them to help us design accelerated learning courses and innovative solutions for learners with interrupted schooling. The refugee state is inherently fluid. Refugees move, often at very short notice, their circumstances change. And our projects and courses need to be open to change more or less continuously. They need to be responsive, adaptable, and I suggest modular, offered in modular format. And we, as an NGO, need to accompany these refugees and counsel them, as Willie was referring to, on their futures, and counsel them with the myriad of questions that they have to negotiate through. Sustainability has already been raised as an issue. It is a key issue. It's very easy to start a project. It's very hard to keep it going over time. It's partly why we have these concrete objectives at the end of a course, which extends beyond the giving of a certificate. And when we achieve these, we close and we move on to a more serious situation. A couple of changes in context that I would like to, that's basically what we've learnt. and the couple of changes of context I'd like to share with you, which I think are very important for us to consider. The access to and involvement of universities in this sector has been increasing. When Jesuit Worldwide Learning and ourselves started 7 years ago, there was one other tertiary education project that I knew of. Now, there are many universities working in this field, much more than 7 years ago. And we are seeing the mass open online courses. We are seeing different models being offered, and we need to take account of these and be open to those. Access to international scholarships is also increasing, and this is good news. But students need to be supported to take up either residential or online studies scholarships. Our global world now offers opportunities for online contract employment, and the possibilities of which we need to explore more. In one of the camps in Africa, I know a refugee who is writing software for Microsoft, basically on a cell phone and a computer and a cell phone network. And he earns income for this, and it's a sustainable income. This is the kind of opportunities that we must look at, explore, and offer, and contribute towards. And I think the last thing is that governments, I believe, are increasingly becoming open. This is governments of the Global South are increasingly becoming open to seeing refugees as development actors, as people with the potential that we talk about that can contribute to the development of those countries. In the last year, we have seen the government of Chad give and encourage refugees to take up teacher training, to be employed in the government system there. The government of Malawi, at the same time, has, after a huge hiatus, has said, we will give conditional employments for refugee teachers and professional people working in the environs of the camp. Kenya, there's legislation for work rights for refugees that has been passed through Parliament and is sitting on the President's desk for sign-off. So I think the key issue that we're dealing with is how can we join the institutions of higher learning, most of which are kind of set up and run almost in perpetuity, with the fluidity and extreme sort of changeability of the refugee state. And that is where JRS and other NGOs come in. If you want somebody to clean your facility and to keep the security guards, then please hire a security company or get a company of cleaners. If you want to mount courses in a refugee situation by yourself, go ahead with our blessing. That's good. But if you want to use a group that knows how to work in these areas, that brings to the table a project management mentality and way of operating, that does needs assessments and that is committed to following the refugees right through the process to the end game, to the rest of their lives, then let's talk about partnership. Allow us to do what we do best. None of us can do this. None of us can kill this cat individually. We need to work together. That's why I believe we're talking in this forum here today. I think the overall opportunity that exists worldwide is too important for us to miss. We must work together, and I ask you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Father David. I'm thankful to all of the speakers, and I think that this session wraps up with a thought for me that it's not about a huge numbers, but it's about the number of people, even a small number, that have been helped and educated, like the one from Portugal, like the one from South Africa and others. And I would give the floor now to Father Pedro Rubens to wrap up this session for us before we go to coffee break. And unfortunately, we don't have time left for questions, but we will have a coffee break to discuss any questions with our speakers. Father Pedro.
Alors, est-ce qu'on aura de 5 minutes pour des questions? 5 minutes pour des questions? Ou bien on peut supprimer le café et poser toutes les questions que vous avez. Donc, 5 minutes pour des questions ici et 25 minutes de questions avec des coffee break. OK?
My name is Juliet Evelyn. I'm from Catholic University Eichstätt-Ingolstadt in Bavaria, Germany. And I have a question to Father David and Dr. Ondaatje. My question is, how political do you think should universities be in driving a change politically as well? Because at the moment we're talking about healing wounds, helping people that come to us. But I think, well, I wonder, shouldn't we try and drive policies that are more friendly towards immigration or more human towards immigration? And thinking especially of Dr. Ondaatje, who comes from a country that is at the moment not showering itself in glory, considering taking refugees. Is, for example, ACU doing something on this sector?
I'm happy to start. We're absolutely not covering ourselves in glory in Australia, and I'm ashamed to say that. Wherever I go in the world, inevitably I get asked the question about what we're doing, or indeed sometimes what we're not doing to assist those in need who are literally at times right in front of us. I mean, I'm looking at my fellow Australian here who knows only too well what I'm talking about. I think in terms of universities, the first principle has to be do no harm. So I don't mean that in a kind of soft, defensive, let's be so cautious as to do nothing. What I mean is we want to ensure from the very beginning that whatever we do doesn't hurt the people in whose name we are speaking or advocating. So I think I referred in my presentation to the importance of striking a balance between advocating for people in need but also recognising that sometimes advocacy can significantly, in a very negative way, affect their circumstances. So we're careful. We operate within clear parameters at ACU because we know what the Burmese government and what the Thai government are going to accept and what they're not going to accept. And for us, our absolute objective is to ensure that this program continues. In terms of the broader question of should universities advocate in the public domain, my view's always been that people at universities should advocate in the public domain and that universities should enable them to do so. And I think for a Catholic university like the one I work at in Australia, Australian Catholic University, we have a Vice-Chancellor who has led from the front in Australia on issues around the death penalty. I'm at this conference, I think, because this issue that we're discussing over the next 2 to 3 days is something that he believes very strongly in and that our institution is absolutely committed to. So we certainly are a university that will stand up for those in need. We make no apologies for that. We're proud of that. But there are pragmatics at play here. We want to ensure that whatever we do isn't hurting the people we're seeking to help.
My mother's a New Zealander, and it's events like this, I generally call myself a New Zealander rather than an Australian. I think I had a meeting with the members of the South African government about a year ago, and they said we don't need people to tell us what we're doing wrong. We need you NGOs to help us design something we can do that will give us a political dividend in this area. I thought it was incredibly honest and incredibly confronting, the complexity that governments face. Migration has been a human reality for the last 200,000 years, almost as long as the existence of humans. And it amazes me that migration studies is such a small part of university life and is offered by so few universities. We are not facing a new crisis or a new movement of people. This has been a constant throughout human history. In the 1980s, 3.5 million people moved in the aftermath of the Vietnam War. With the cooperation of 20 countries, all of those people were resettled, including Australia and New Zealand. We do have the potential to be able to do this, but as I referred to in my talk, we too easily get sidetracked by political and emotional views. I think universities have a fantastic opportunity in working with forced migrants to be able to learn from them and learn from the experience and use their expertise to really study the science of migration in all of its aspects. I think it was Dr. Mariana referred to how her university is helping NGOs train for them, but is also using some of that in research. And I think this is a key way forward, because I think, if anything, the politics around migration needs steady voices and authoritative academic voices who have thought about this and can offer a good perspective and really help to sort of inform the debates. And I think our world is crying out for that at the moment.
Alors, notre temps est fini, mais je vous rappelle que le Portugal existe, la Germanie existe, on vous remercie à tous, d'un côté à l'autre, et aussi au service des réfugiés. Merci beaucoup, bon café, avec des questions bien sûr, et on revient à 11h ici. Merci.